Gameranx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight up gameplay and some first impressions of the latest games releasing. Today we're talking about Civilization 6. The Civ games are definitely difficult games to at least initially give like a formal review on, seeing how these games kind of develop on you over time. For example, a lot of reviewers enjoyed Civ 5, but after a year or so when everyone played the hell out of it and every crevice was basically explored, its shortcomings were way more apparent. The first thing I can say about Civilization 6 though is that it feels very, very different and better than Civ 5. And as we go along, keep in mind I only captured early in-game footage because I didn't really want to spoil much further down the line and some endgame stuff. I know it's a weird game to be quote-unquote spoiled on, but I think some Civ fans out there might feel me on that. One of the most apparent things, and it seems like they spent the most time on, is that each civilization and leader has a much larger pool of unique attributes and special abilities to go on. And it really shows in the AI and the lands that you're coexisting with. Actually, coexisting seems easier than ever because there's just so much for each country to achieve and work towards that sometimes paths just don't happen to cross much, and there's peace. But not always, that added depth for leaders is great though, I think, because each nation operates with some sort of actual real personality. You can actually feel a difference. For example, like Teddy Roosevelt in the United States is very, very aggressive, and Queen Victoria from England embraces using spies. Right off the bat though, as soon as you start dealing with bigger nations and city-states, it clearly you feel a difference here. There's just a lot more going on. Personally, for me, the best of these new systems, and it's more of a surface value one, but I really like the way the districts are now. The main base of your city will occupy one tile, but when you build on top of that now, cities don't stack. Now you choose districts in surrounding tiles to build out your city and add new areas and get more attributes. It sounds simple enough, but it gets really, really complex from an actual city planning aspect, something that Civ never really had before, and I really like plotting out where I'm going to put my districts in the future, where I'm going to actually establish my city, and even when you add an upgrade to these districts to see them grow and new things pop up within those actual districts, like what you actually clicked on, is awesome. That visual indicator really makes a difference, at least for me. That's where the systems can get a little intricate. You start off with one trader, but you need more trade routes, but you can't actually occupy one until you build a new market in its corresponding district, and you actually see corresponding buildings pop up for that. It also makes building wonders feel like a huge accomplishment because they take up an entire tile, and it takes a long time for them to develop, and then when you do, you get this grand kind of cutscene of it being constructed, and it just feels good. In terms of major interface overhauls, it doesn't seem like too much is apparent at first, but that's basically what's going on here, is that there's now much more info available at a glance and through hovering. And while there are much more systems now, and there are technically more pages and windows to look at, I feel much less like I'm actually diving deep into menus. It feels like less I'm clicking to click to get into something, I'm kind of just running down and running through things that they have changed and they have added, but it's also some of the aspects I like about the game the most, and that's the best way to talk about a new Civ game. Trade routes now establish roads, and that system works pretty easy. You don't have to put a lot of thought into it, but I do like it. Also, workers are now builders, and they are expendable units where you get 3 of them, and each one can build one thing. So it really takes a little while to figure out how you're going to create a unit of builders and utilize them to your advantage. Do you spend one on a farm and then upgrade that farm, or do you move them on to something else? I personally prefer more micromanaging, and in previous Civ games, I didn't really micromanage my workers, but now with the builder system, I find myself doing that much more. It's also worth noting that research has been fleshed out a lot for the best, I think. Civic-minded stuff like arts and ideologies have an actual civics tree, and then traditional technology has a technology tree. This stuff also gives way to the new government system, which you can choose and develop systems within. It gets much deeper with even more attributes and perks for each one. You can embrace feudalism, a classical republic, an oligarchy, stuff like that. But I think the big thing that is going to answer a lot of people's questions is that this active research stuff does make the mid-game feel much less boring. The mid-game in Civ games is notoriously kind of like a lull, and I think the way these features are now and the active research definitely help with that a lot. It just makes it so that there's always suspenseful and important decisions to make. There's also the spy system that I mentioned earlier. It's cool, and it does really work best with England, and it makes it easier to win a cultural victory at endgame if that's something you're going for or that's your playstyle. The envoy system also makes alliances much deeper than just buying your way into an allegiance. There's little meta stuff within that, like earning a suzerain status to get even more bonuses, and it just makes the whole envoy and alliance system feel like a mini game. And since there is so much going on, of course, you can go on the warpath and still kill everyone, but don't expect to fall back on a military. It's always, at least for me, kind of boring, and now with all these systems, there's just always so much more going on, and it really, truly this time around emphasizes victory in a variety of different ways. Maybe some embracing some playstyles that you haven't done before in a Civ game. So far, after 2 long playthroughs, that's what I've enjoyed the most. I am liking the game a lot, but there is a big shortcoming, and I think it's going to be for some people, it's dominated the conversation, and that is the visuals. People have been criticizing Civ 6's visuals since the beginning. I never really totally thought it was was warranted, but now after spending a lot of time with it, I get it. When it's in motion and in action, and if you look up close, the graphics are good visually, it does look good. It's just really the art style that they embrace that some people aren't a fan of. I think a lot of people just might not jive with it. It's very bright, it's very high contrast, it looks colorful, it looks cartoony, it looks like a cheaper, smaller game, and that's definitely a turnoff for some people, but what I do at least like is the look of the map and the surrounding areas. Now it looks like a sketched out old map instead of like a fog of war. That I enjoy a lot. It's very different and it gives the game a different look. Some people think it cheapens the look, but I enjoy it. But overall, the visuals, I think, don't give me the most satisfaction, but thankfully the detail within the city districts, to me, kind of makes up for that. That's like a good concession. And performance-wise, on my end, I haven't really encountered any issues. I am running on a 980 Ti. So guys, that's Civilization 6. You know how Before You Buys go. I give you the pros, some cons, and some personal opinion thrown in there. And overall, I do think this is a great game. Civ fans should play this game. While at surface value, it doesn't look like much has changed besides the visuals, which I admit aren't that hot. The amount of actual additions to the systems make this game an exciting thing to jump into. And I'm very curious to hear what you guys think of it down in the comments below. Are you a diehard Civ fan? Have you been playing Civ 6? What do you think about it? If you're an outsider, maybe you're a console player, you don't play these games much, let me know what you think at first glance, how you feel about Civ 6. Let's talk about anything Civ 6 down in the comments below. I'll also be answering your questions on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino as well. And you guys know the deal. Clicking the like button helps us out a ton, and we really appreciate it. And subscribing if you're new is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.